I'm going to be talking about the gaming industry and in particular linking it to our set product Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. Now, the gaming industry is a relatively new form of media if we were to compare all the different media that we are looking at: television, magazine, music, etc. In fact, games were in their infancy in the 1970s, and if we were to look back at some of the games that were available through the 70s, 80s, 90s and early 2000s, you can see a clear development in how technology has improved the quality and has improved the gameplay of video games for the audiences. So it is an industry that is very rapidly developing and very fast moving. So with this rapid technological development, you have the evolution of the gamer, the person who is part of the community who plays a particular game in a franchise. Somebody who is really interested and really invested in a particular game. And this is something that is, again, relatively new, and there are various representations of the gamer, and there have been different portrayals of people who play computer games in the media. And like with all media that is new, it carries with it a fear of how it impacts the audience. If we take it right the way back to Bandura's effects theory, you will have a lot of people arguing that those who play too many video games are more likely to become violent. There have been many scenarios in the media where gaming has been blamed for events, tragic events that have taken place, and for things that have happened. Even Donald Trump, with the recent school shootings, seemed to imply that it was the fault of the gaming industry that made this young person decide that he was going to carry out this attack on his school. You don't have to look very far for headlines and for online opinions that state that gaming, because it isn't a passive medium, because you are in control of the level of violence and the level of killing that is taking place, that it's just one step away from actually becoming a violent person yourself. And again, we can apply this to Bandura's theory, although we do know that there are significant problems with that application and with that theory in general. We could also think about it in terms of Gerbner's cultivation theory, that the more we access something and the more we do something, the more it has an impact and the more it grows ideas. And it would be fair to say that some gamers do spend increasing amounts of time playing computer games. So Assassin's Creed 3, this is part of a franchise, as the number 3 would suggest, and the game Assassin's Creed actually is based on a fictitious historical sect and looks at this quest for morality, and will argue that it is a fight between good and evil, and that the assassins are on a moral conquest. That aside, I think the real reason that people play Assassin's Creed is because the franchise has made it popular. Technological convergence and the rapid expansion of technology has made the gameplay attractive, it's made it interesting, it's given it a narrative, and gamers who engage with Assassin's Creed like to feel involved in the game. And Assassin's Creed was initially released on the PS Vita on the 30th of October 2012, and initially it was exclusive to the PS Vita. However, Ubisoft decided to release it in 2014 onto the PS3 and Xbox 360 in order to expand the gameplay and to expand the audience who would be able to access this game. The promotion of gaming has had a real significant economic impact. It's often a real economic event when a new game is released. People will even queue round the block, people will queue at all hours of the night when a new game from a franchise that they've been waiting for is released. It's become something that draws audiences together in their passion and in their interest for these new games. Assassin's Creed, as we've said before, is part of a popular franchise, and Ubisoft were trying to do something a little bit different by introducing it primarily on a handheld console. And it could be argued that they were trying to promote it to an audience, a new audience, who are used to playing games on handheld devices. Now, I am reliably informed that this wasn't popular with all audience members, and that the handheld device, although initially popular, actually lost popularity after a little while. And you will be able to find them now having decreased in value quite significantly. So the PlayStation Vita was used primarily to access Assassin's Creed 3 alongside the PlayStation 3. This was designed to have maximum impact on the major gaming markets in Japan, North America and Europe, which are the three countries who are responsible for the economic rise of gaming. This puts Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation on a multinational platform, so you can see the expansion and the popularity of video games worldwide. Video games transcend language barriers, they transcend often cultural ideals, because the narratives are entertaining and because gamers like to explore and like to discuss different strategies, and this doesn't have to be restricted to one culture. Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation itself was commended initially for the high production values, for increasing abilities of characters to be able to achieve the tasks set ahead, and increase in the amount of scope to explore the narrative firsthand, and to also combine and play with other gamers. In terms of audience and looking at how Ubisoft and PlayStation were attempting to appeal to and expand their audience, it would be remiss to not recognise that Assassin's Creed 3 has a female protagonist. This was an attempt most likely to expand their audience and possibly even to challenge and subvert some of the stereotypes that exist in the gaming industry about female protagonists. If we have a think about Lara Croft, for example, in Tomb Raider, she is an interesting one to compare to our female protagonist. Her attire, the way she conducts herself, the impact that she's had on gamers, and the criticisms that she has faced by feminist groups who say it isn't enough to just stick a female protagonist in a computer game and say, well, now girls can play games too. Actually, it needs to reflect the ideals of women in our current society. So you want to have a think about Aveline and think about whether she is reflective of the modern female in society and whether she's helpful in terms of representation. Not everybody enjoyed the fact that Assassin's Creed now had a female protagonist. There were discussions online, there have been criticisms about her, but on the other hand there have been many commendations as well, particularly from the female fan base for Assassin's Creed. Is she a token female? Is it just a poor attempt to place a female within a fully male-dominated medium? That's something, again, that it would be really interesting for you to explore and look at and think about, and also to possibly apply our feminist theorists to as well. The other area that you will need to think about and look into is the area of gaming and regulation. Now, Assassin's Creed is rated 18 by the PEGI ratings, video game ratings. But what does this actually mean in terms of video games? Does it mean that only 18-year-olds will be playing this? Is regulation of the gaming industry actually as successful as something like the BBFC in terms of how seriously audiences take the regulation and accept the ratings? And there's a constant argument by those who want to access games that are of a higher rating than is advised, that they should be responsible for their own media literacy and they should be able to play games that they think are suitable. So regulation surrounding video games is one to look at and one to think about, and obviously our theorists for regulation are Livingstone and Lunt, and they primarily look at the difficulties in enforcing regulation within a rapidly transforming technological society. So this applies to online gaming in particular, where it is difficult to regulate who is playing and it is difficult to restrict ages. Again, why is Assassin's Creed 3 and 18? What reasons, what topics are there? You will need to look at some of the gameplay, actual footage of the game, and decipher for yourself why you think it wouldn't be suitable for somebody under the age of 18 to play. The topic obviously deals with killing, that's explicit in the word assassin, but how brutal is it? What does it show? What are some of the ideologies that may not be suitable for somebody under the age of 18 contained within the game? Both versions of the game, the PlayStation version and the PlayStation Vita version, also offer downloadable content, which looks at audience gratification and the way that audiences like to be rewarded for their engagement with games, and special features that encourage audiences to have a more satisfying gaming experience. And finally, you will need to have a look at how fandom is a very significant part of the gaming industry. Another term coined by Henry Jenkins, who looks at technological convergence and the impact on audiences. With Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, there are many different fan sites that you can access. Fans, by their very nature, want to extend the narrative and the story that they are given access to by the media. So the story of Aveline, the character of Aveline, even her romantic interactions. Audiences want to be a part of the media that they consume. So gamers in particular, who will spend a lot of time online and who will spend a lot of time interacting with one another, use these platforms in order to extend and expand the narrative, not to just gain helpful tips about what to do and about shortcuts in terms of gameplay, but also to extend the story of the protagonist, to extend the ideas and the concepts that they see within the game. So, there are a few things that you will need to look into in greater detail in terms of Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. You will need to look at some of the actual footage of the gameplay and see whether you can identify the appeal, and to also maybe it would be helpful for you to look at other games in the franchise to look at how character and narrative and ideas are developed within the franchise. Look at some of the fan sites, look at some of the things that people have said about this game, look at its popularity in relation to others within the franchise, and in general what you will want to do is have a look at regulation surrounding the gaming industry and how audiences are responding to that regulation, whether it's enough, whether it's adequate, whether there is any truth in the idea that gaming has an impact on the minds of the audience, or whether you think that gaming can be used as a scapegoat and as a way of making excuses for some of the behaviour of society. There is a lot more research, so have a look for yourself at some of these, but use this as a starting point to do so.